In the rolling hills of Somerset, England, lies the picturesque Cheddar Gorge. The towering limestone cliffs that frame the gorge are home to a labyrinth network of caves, each steeped in history and wonder. Among these is Gough's Cave, a sprawling subterranean world known for its stunning stalactites, stalagmites, and the whispers of ancient secrets that echo through its passages. It is here that our story unfolds, a tragedy that still haunts the caving community to this day. Neil Moss was a 20-year-old philosophy student at Oxford, brimming with curiosity and a thirst for adventure. Neil spent much of his free time exploring caves. For him, caving was more than just a hobby. It was a way to connect with the ancient and the unknown, and to push the boundaries of human exploration. Though relatively new to the sport, Neil had already gained a reputation for his determination and courage. It was the perfect challenge. Unlike the main tourist route, a well-lit pathway showcasing the cave's natural beauty, there were areas that remained untouched, hidden behind narrow passages and precipitous drops. Neil was captivated by the idea of exploring these lesser-known regions, driven by the prospect of making discoveries that could cement his place in geology history. On March 22, 1959, Neil and a small team of fellow cavers arrived at Gough's Cave with the intention of mapping a new section. The mood was one of excitement and anticipation. Little did they know that their adventure would soon spiral into a desperate fight for survival. The day began like any other caving expedition. Neil and his team meticulously prepared their equipment, double-checking ropes, harnesses, and lights. They carried only the essentials, knowing that every ounce could become a burden in the narrow confines of the cave. As they entered the cavern's yawning mouth, the world above faded into obscurity, replaced by the dim glow of their headlamps and the damp, echoing silence of the underground. Their goal was a narrow, sloping shaft commonly known as the corkscrew. This passage had a notorious reputation among cavers for its tight confines and steep descent. It was a treacherous route, but Neil was undeterred. As the leader of the expedition, he insisted on being the first to enter, eager to blaze a trail for the others to follow. The shaft was claustrophobic, its walls pressing in from all sides. Neil inched forward on his stomach, his helmet scraping against the limestone ceiling. Behind him, his teammates held the rope that tethered him to safety, their voices calling out words of encouragement. Despite the discomfort, Neil pressed on, driven by a mix of adrenaline and resolve. As Neil descended deeper, the passage grew narrower. The limestone walls, slick with moisture, became more restrictive, forcing Neil to contort his body into unnatural positions. Yet he continued, certain that, if he just pushed on a little bit more, he could get through. Then, suddenly, he stopped. Neil had reached a choke point where the passage narrowed to a diameter barely wider than his shoulders. Although he tried to wriggle forward, the rock held him fast. Very quickly, he realized he was stuck. Realizing the danger he was in, Neil called out to his team. At first, they thought it was just a minor setback, something that could be resolved with just a little bit of maneuvering. They tightened the rope and attempted to pull him free, but the angle of the shaft made it impossible to exert enough force without risking injury. Neil's voice, initially calm and composed, began to show traces of fear. Trapped, Neil's breathing grew labored. The confined space restricted not only his movement, but also the flow of oxygen. Panic began to set in among the team as they grasped the gravity of the situation. They needed help, and they needed it fast. One member of the group hurried back to the surface to alert authorities. Within hours, a rescue operation was underway. Experienced cavers and emergency personnel arrived on the scene, their faces grim as they assessed the challenge before them. The clock was ticking, and every passing moment diminished Neil's chances of survival. The rescuers knew they faced an uphill battle from the start. The corkscrew's narrow confines made it nearly impossible to reach Neil, let alone extract him. Only the smallest and most agile of cavers could navigate the passage, and even then, they struggled to maneuver in the tight spaces. Despite these challenges, they worked tirelessly, employing ropes, pulleys, and chisels in an attempt to widen the shaft. Despite the stress, Neil remained conscious throughout much of the ordeal, although his voice was growing weaker as the oxygen levels plummeted. Rescuers spoke to him constantly, offering words of reassurance and urging him to please stay awake. They brought oxygen tanks to the shaft in an effort to improve the air quality. However, the ventilation was poor, and the fresh air struggled to reach Neil. As the hours stretched into the night, the rescuers' efforts began to take a toll. Exhausted and demoralized, they cycled in and out of the cave, determined not to give up. Neil's parents arrived on the scene, their faces etched with anguish as they waited for the news. The entire operation was a race against time, and everyone knew the stakes. Nonetheless, despite their best efforts, rescuers were unable to free Neil. The passage's unyielding rock and the precarious conditions made it impossible to extract him without risking a collapse. On March 23rd, after nearly 24 hours trapped in the shaft, Neil Moss succumbed to asphyxiation. His voice, which had been a lifeline to the rescuers, fell silent, leaving a void that echoed throughout the cave. The news of Neil's death sent shockwaves throughout the caving community. For many, it was a sobering reminder of the risks inherent in their pursuit. Neil's family, devastated by the loss, made the heart-wrenching decision to leave his body in the cave. The corkscrew was sealed with rubble, effectively becoming his tomb. It remains untouched to this day, a sober monument to a life cut tragically short. In the years following the tragedy, the story of Neil Moss became a cautionary tale for cavers and adventurers alike. It highlights the importance of preparation, the limits of human endurance, and the unforgiving nature of the underground world. For those who knew Neil, it is a story of unfulfilled potential, a young man whose passion for discovery was extinguished far too soon. The tragedy also prompted changes in caving practices. Rescue organizations began to place greater emphasis on safety protocols and equipment, ensuring that future expeditions would be better prepared for emergencies. Neil's story serves as a reminder that even the most experienced adventurers must respect the forces of nature and the inherent dangers of their pursuits. Today, Gough's Cave remains a popular destination, attracting tourists and explorers from around the world. Its main chambers, illuminated by soft lighting, showcase breathtaking formations that have taken thousands of years to form. But for those who venture into its depths, the memory of Neil Moss lingers. His story is a testament to the human spirit's relentless drive to explore and the heavy price that sometimes accompanies it. If you liked that video, please consider leaving a like and a thumbs up, and if you have any suggestions for future videos or ways that we can improve, please leave them in the comments below. With that, thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next video.